Every day we are getting closer to the tip-off of the NBA season. But what are people really thinking about the top players within the league this year? And where do your Bucks land on this year's projections? I'm Jake Finnerty, and welcome on into Bucks Digest. If you want to keep it locked on all things Milwaukee Bucks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to keep it locked here on Bucks Digest for absolutely every single bit of information. 90% of our viewers are not subscribed yet. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date on absolutely everything, because we want you to stick around as we inch towards 1,000 subscribers. We're almost at that point, guys. That's going to be awesome when we hit it. But, guys, it's that time of year. Everyone is making their projections on who's going to finish where, what players are going to do what, and of course, ranking some of the top players within the league this year, specifically where they think they're going to end up going into next year. And that's kind of where I'm going with this video, because most recently, HoopsHype put out their list of the top 100 players of 2024-2025 season. And this is all a projection on where these players are going to be come this time next year, or come the end of the season next year. So obviously, take a look at this list. You know, you see some familiar faces. You want to see where everyone's ranked, but most importantly, where are the Bucks on this list? Where are the Bucks being represented? And right from the top of the list, a little bit past that 100 spot, is where we can find our first Milwaukee Buck, with Khris Middleton coming in at the 96th spot. Now, I gotta say, this one did not really upset me that much. I think it's very fitting for Khris Middleton to still be within that top 100 based on everything that he brings to the team, the offense, and just the chemistry in general in Milwaukee. I think Khris Middleton kind of flies under the radar when it comes to a lot of that stuff. I think 96 is kind of the perfect spot for him, where you see he has a lot of holes, a lot of flaws when it comes to that lateral quickness or the defensive end, but his offense is still very much there. And also, not to mention the injury concern. Of course, going into this season, we're still kind of on edge on what's going to be when it comes to his injuries, and, you know, having to rehab over the offseason going into next season. Kind of where are we going to be sitting with that? I think Khris Middleton at 96 kind of is perfect, and it tops it off. But moving forward, I think this is where a little bit of the questions come up. A lot more of the conversations come up, because next player, you got to jump all the way into the 20s, and you've got Damian Lillard sitting at 21, right outside the top 20 players within the league. Now, this doesn't frustrate me that as much seeing him at 21. It frustrates me a little bit more seeing who's ahead of him. Damian Lillard, constantly we've seen, can get it done by himself. Last year, we'll put an asterisk on because of the amount of injuries that the Bucks had and such, but when he was on the court with Giannis, the duo was solid, very good, and obviously we still want another taste of that. But last year, look at those numbers, the 2023-2024 stats. Those are nothing to shy away from. However, there's a young guy on this list that I don't really know if he's fitting to step in front of a guy like Damian Lillard yet. And the guy I'm talking about is Tyrese Maxiell. They put Tyrese Maxiell above Damian Lillard on this list. And just looking at the comparison of stats last year, it just doesn't really add up enough to put Maxiell in front of him. Yes, Maxiell is heading into the prime of his career. A young guy, took a very big step last year, winning Most Improved Player. But looking at these numbers, outside of the points per game differential where Maxiell has the edge, you know, they're kind of relatively even. You want to go with a proven track record. You want to sit on a guy who clearly constantly has been able to tell you, I'm one of the most clutch players in the league. I can provide that. His three-point shooting, his three-point percentage, his field goal percentage, a little bit down compared to Maxiell. But other than that, everything relatively similar here. I just don't see why you're putting Tyrese Maxiell ahead of Damian Lillard on this list. Damian Lillard, again, I will go with it. The veteran presence, the provenness, the clutch gene, right there. Tell me what Philadelphia has done in the past, I don't know, 2 decades, not make a conference finals. Tyrese Maxiell can be a factor for changing that for them, but will Philadelphia really be able to get over that hump? I'm not buying it. I could see Damian Lillard immediately changing this underrated Bucks team, might I add, because they're flying under the radar, which we'll talk about at another time, but is something that should be noted. I think a lot of disrespect for Damian Lillard recently. A lot of disrespect for the Milwaukee Bucks, especially we talked about those 2K ratings. Of course, that's a video game, but let's still talk about the fact that, hey, they're not getting looked at nearly enough. And I think this is just adding to a little bit more of the disrespect right here. Giannis is coming in as the 4th best player in the NBA. 4th. You can give me 3, 2, 1. Of course, I would take 1. I still think he's the most talented player on the face of the earth. You can give me 1. 4. And there's one guy that's sitting ahead of him I don't think should be. I really don't think should be. Because Giannis is currently in the peak of his career. Coming off of an injury that we saw in April. Yes, the Olympics are not the NBA, but seeing him carry a Greece team during this Olympics, the way that he did, and now going into a season where the hype for the Bucks is kind of at an all-time low within the past 5 years. I think there's a lot more on his shoulders now. This just adding to it, and also putting this guy ahead of him, a young guy that's emerging from the West, that was a top MVP candidate last year, but ahead of Giannis already? No, I don't think SGA should be ahead of Giannis Antetokounmpo just yet. You see, a lot of these stats are relatively close. Of course, the points per game are off by a 0.3 margin. The assists per game are off by a 0.3 margin. The steals per game are off by a 0.8 margin. Blocks per game off by a 0.2 margin. That's not what I'm talking about. What I do want to talk about is where those drastic differences are. You see, the rebounds per game are about a 6-point difference, a 6-tick difference there. Whole number at that point. Wherever there is a very large gradual difference, it seems like Giannis has the edge here. Giannis is shooting 61% field goal percentage-wise. 53% is nothing to shy away from when it comes to SGA. But 61% from the field compared to 53% from the field. Sure, SGA has the 3-point shot. We know that Giannis isn't a bona fide 3-point shooter. But we do know that Giannis is dominant on the court. SGA is a proven guard. Can do everything on both ends. He can. And he makes his team better around him. Same as Giannis. But again, going back to a proven track record, Giannis has been doing this for probably the past 6 years. Giannis, the Greek freak, has proven whenever he is on the court, he is the best player on the court. On both sides of the ball, of the teams. It doesn't matter. I will take Giannis over SGA. No matter what, when it talks about going into this year or coming out of next year. Giannis is the best player on the planet. And you can't tell me otherwise. Luka is number 2 on that list. Nikola Jokic is number 1. Nikola Jokic, you have the argument. I get that. But I really don't know if Luka Doncic has the argument over Giannis yet either. I think one thing that people often forget, especially nowadays, there's 2 sides to the ball. You got to play offense, and you got to play defense. Luka Doncic might be one of the most talented offensive people I've ever seen in this league. But defensively, take a look at what he did in the finals. Take a look. He was abysmal. He might have been one of the worst finals defenders in the past 10 years. I don't care what you say. Giannis should not be below number 2 on that list. Giannis is the best player in the world, in my opinion. He's got the argument for 1 or 2, but he's the best player. And this, every single list, if he's lower than that, just adding all the chips on the shoulders, putting more on him to win this year and prove exactly why people like me, people like probably you listening right now, are saying he is the best player in the game right now. Let me know what you think of the HoopsHype top 100 players of this year, or going into this year, in the comments down below. And as always, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stick along here on Bucks Digest.